we don't solve our identity problems by reading more books and chanting more chants or doing more affirmations. We find our identity in Christ, which is a hard thing to do. I think it's the world has so many other things it's telling us. Tim Keller, preaching to your own heart. So you read scriptures, you bring in the truth, and you preach to your own heart to create that heart change.
Hey everybody, welcome to my show. My name is Tiffany and this is Unveiling Journeys. I have an amazing show set up for you today. Can I just tell you a smidge about me? I love hanging out with people. I love hearing their stories. I love chit-chatting all day long. But what's really cool is when you get to hang out with a lot of cool people and you just ask them for their story and what they do, you cannot help yourself but say, wow, oh my gosh, this has been amazing. How do I get to know more people like you? And that's kind of like asking for a referral, but you're just asking for their peer network. And a lot of times I have people say, Tiff, I don't meet that many fun or interesting people. Just say, wow, this has been awesome. Who do you know that I need to know? And maybe there's time for them to hear out kind of what you're up to. But at the same time, I'm usually bubbling over to say like, can I invite you to some of my networking events where there's people I need you to know right away because of what it is you're up to? And what has happened is I've met some of the neatest, coolest people I've ever met in my life. And I can no longer be quiet about them. I want everyone to know them. And so the podcast was born, a year and a quarter ago. And I put out 2 episodes a week. Probably I should do more. And I just want everyone to know all of the guests that I've been meeting and that I've had the privilege of being able to be introduced to. And so with that, let me start our show. I'm so excited to introduce Kurt. Thank you so much for being here. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are, what you're up to right now.
Well, thank you, Tiffany, for inviting me. It's a privilege to be here. My wife and I started a marketing agency almost 20 years ago now. So it's May, and October will be 20 years old. And originally, we started it exclusively with the purpose of political marketing. You know, my wife and I went to school together at college. We met in the College Republican Club, the most nerdy, meet cute ever, right? Is to meet in the College Republican Club. And then graduated from college and really wanted to pursue changing the world. And we thought we're going to help get a bunch of politicians elected. So for most of our 20-year tour, that's what we've done.
Wow.
Our
Yeah.
expertise really is in the area of crowdfunding for politicians. So we're the people who send you all those unsolicited texts and emails asking for money for politicians. I'm sorry.
Speaking of, right, in the heart of
Yes,
2026 right now. Yeah.
yes, yes. People are probably getting a lot of those right now. But we do fundraising for them. That's why they hire us. It's more expensive these days to run for office than it's ever been, and they all need money. And so we help raise money for them. And we built a really big business doing that over 20 years. And but something happened a few years ago. As a person of faith, I like to talk. A lot of us will talk about seasons of life, right? And it just started to feel like the season of working exclusively in politics was coming to an end. There's a lot of reasons for that, which aren't enough time to talk about in one episode, but just felt like maybe we needed to make a more serious effort to expand outside of the political world. You get involved in politics because you're going to change the world and you're going to get the right politicians elected and the sun's going to come out and the Red Sea is going to part and everything's going to be wonderful. And we have done a lot of really consequential things in politics, but just didn't feel like we were achieving that change that we were actually seeing more often in the entrepreneurial community. So politicians are sort of behind the no worries. Politicians are sort of behind. They're working on things that are, they're fixing problems that already exist, right? Whereas entrepreneurs are inventing new things. They're creating jobs. They're solving problems, and we needed to be involved in that. And it took us a while to sort of figure out what this new thing was going to look like, what we were going to do.
Yeah.
Because we were so used to it. Everything was built around one thing. How can we get a $25 contribution for a U.S. senator or governor? Everything in our business was built around that. And now we were saying we wanted to help a business sell widgets. And it took us a while to sort of figure it out. We spent a lot of time thinking about, well, we understand a conservative and a Christian consumer because those tend to be the people who give to our Republican political candidates, right? And so we're going to really run up the score for businesses with that market segment, which is pretty sizable. But in the end, what the epiphany we had, and it took a little while, I think, to see it, was what our true superpower is. What we've done so well, even back in the original days of our marketing agency, is making connections. So it's not all that different than what you were sharing when your introduction.
Yeah.
We learned in 20 years of working in politics how to build a network of political consultants and other people all over the country. And I like meeting new people. I enjoy folks. And I also was very liberal in sharing my network with other people, which I found rewarded.
Yeah.
I got rewarded for. That's how we built our agency.
Right.
Was I would meet Tiffany and other people want to meet Tiffany. I was always willing to make an introduction. And that always came back to me in a great way. And I know a lot of business owners don't have that figured out.
No.
Right? They're all focused on, I'm going to run more Facebook ads, or I got to figure out how to do a cool ClickFunnels thing, or I need to now master this AI. And all those things are sort of important, but they haven't figured out the people side of their business, or how to develop a good referral partner.
Yep.
Or how to just make a simple ask like, Tiffany, who do you know that needs new accounting services, right?
Right.
In the meantime, they're blowing through $50,000 a month in Facebook ads, right? Hoping it works. And they've not asked their best buddy, who do you know, right? And so this is a long wind up to how we ended up doing what we're doing right now, which is we've been building out what we call a private introduction and deal flow network for faith-aligned business owners of all shapes and sizes. We find people who really understand the value of orchestrating connection, of finding collaborators, referral partners, finding collaborations they can do. And everyone in our group is committed to the idea that we're all bringing our ecosystems to the table, and every participant can access those as needed. And so it's really created what I think is one of the most efficient ways to grow your business for people in our group. When you can get a free referral,
right,
to a potential $20,000 client or whatever your thing is.
Yeah, right.
As opposed to, I spent $5,000 in Facebook ads, and I'm not digging Facebook ads. That's how I find donors for my political candidates, right? But we really help people figure out how to maximize their relationships, and how valuable some of them just undervalue relationships. Or they're too surface level in their relationships too. And they think, to your point, you meet cool people and you want to help those other people introduce you to more cool people, right? So that's what we've been up to. It's a long story to get there, but that's what we've been doing.
Well, it means so much. Like you said, it's more expensive than ever. And, for people to make it, to even be heard out as a representative or a candidate for any party, doesn't really matter. You have to have the backing behind you. And so to have somebody mastered that option for you to be able to have that as a service for people, it's cool. That's what's fun about this show, is that I didn't even know that there was a lane for someone like that. And now that I know, it's like opened my eyes to realize, like, man, you've conquered the ability to go out and you've invented that. And now in this reinvention, a little bit different. And let's talk, actually, I want to go a little bit more into that, but let's start at the beginning. I want to hear out your journey. Let's unveil it. Tell me, where are you from? And what did you even think, like you said, what you're going to do when you were growing up, or what did you go to school for? It's a pretty hefty question. I know.
Yeah. Well, I'm originally from Ohio. I live in Indianapolis now, but I'm originally from Ohio. I came to Indiana to go to college at Indiana Wesleyan University, which is a Christian school based up in Marion, Indiana. One of the largest in the country. And I wanted to go to originally because I was going to be a pastor. That was my plan. And oddly, I got some advice from my own pastor, actually the person who was pastor of our church previously before me. I told him what my ambition was, and he said, being a pastor or preacher is not something you do because you think you'd be good at it. you do it because you feel a calling from God directly to do it. In fact, his exact words were, you need to feel like you would get struck down by God if you didn't do it, right? Because it's such an important role and it's
Mm.
not easy, and leading a church is very difficult. And if the calling is not directly from God, you're not going to succeed.
Hmm.
And I thought about it and I thought, I don't have that, right? I don't feel that way about becoming a preacher, right?
Wow.
I'm actually as passionate, maybe even more passionate about political stuff, which I had started to volunteer for in high school. And I had a couple of high school teachers who were into politics. Both of my history teachers, one was a Democrat, one was a Republican, by the way, which was kind of fun. And so that was back in the day when people were getting fired when they
Yeah.
talked about politics at school,
Yeah.
right? And
Gosh.
so they both inspired me to get involved in local politics, which I did, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And so instead of going to school for to be a pastor, I eventually went to college with a political science degree.
Hmm.
And I thought for a while I wanted to be president of the United States. Then I realized that is a horrible life. Like it is not something you want to live. You have no control over what happens to you. It's, you age 100 years in 4 years, and so I don't really want that, but I could run somebody's campaign for president. That was the idea. But the more I got involved in politics and became an expert more in crowdfunding or small dollar fundraising, I realized I enjoyed this. It's a great way to help out a political candidate, and I got to avoid all of the political drama mostly.
Oh,
Like
that's so much better.
yes,
Right?
they love me because I'm the one funding their campaign, but I didn't have to deal with all the day to day. I'm getting attacked for this.
Yep.
What should I do? Where are all my yard signs? None of that stuff. That's the super stressful side of political campaigns. So we really settled on this. And, there's a business axiom I've heard many, many times over, which is if you want to have a successful business, you've got to solve a problem that people feel super acutely, right? So it's not just a kind of, sort of, but for a political candidate, having enough funding to run is the most existential problem they all have. And so when I come to them and say, look, I raised $38 million for Ted Cruz online in 11 months in 2024, which I did. There's never a question of, do I want you?
Wow. Yeah.
It's how much do you want to get paid, right?
Huh.
And so we learned how to solve a really tough problem. And I don't do it. Not everybody can raise $38 million online, by the way. It takes some stature, some ability, which Ted Cruz has. But we solved a problem when we really grew from that. At the height of our business in 2022, we had 50 plus employees all working on this.
Wow.
And then what I learned at the end of that cycle, I thought, I have 50 some employees. I have almost $6 million a year in payroll. They don't work for me. I work for them. I'm stressed every month trying to come up with, to pay $6 million in payroll.
Yeah.
I need at an average 30 to 40% gross profit. I need to sell 3 times that every month, not to include all the other expenses that go along with all those employees, the computers, the office space, all this stuff.
Right.
Like this is miserable. And I also realized at one point, because Ted Cruz was our client that cycle too, and even though he wasn't on cycle, my bottom 150 clients combined didn't pay me as much as Ted Cruz was paying me. I thought, why do I have all these? I have all these clients, and I have to have all this personnel to service those clients. And oddly enough, Ted was the least demanding, right? Like,
I love that.
And
connection.
So I thought, yeah, like, why am I mean, he expects results, right? But he's a rational human being. He realizes that, miracles can't happen. He's got better things to do than to call me every 20 minutes saying how the email go, right? Which a lot of these smaller candidates were doing. Yeah. I thought, okay, I can be so much more efficient if we shrunk down in size, which we did. 2022 was our biggest year ever. But by 2024 on election day, instead of having 200 clients, we had about 20, I think, that we billed.
Oh, wow. That's incredible.
but it was just as profitable. And then part of the reason we raised $38 million for Ted Cruz, were a lot of factors, but one of the reasons were it, at some time I figured out it was a lot easier for me to make more money by doing a better job for Ted Cruz and putting more resources towards that than it was to go find 10 other people who weren't as high profile and
Yeah.
try to squeeze pennies out of those folks, right? I'd go raise another $5 million for Ted Cruz and get paid on that, right? Much easier. And so now that proved to be a very important realization. However, what's funny about that is political candidates hard to predict, and so because you don't know who's going to be a big deal. So when it came
Yeah.
time to the 2026 cycle like this one, you know, sometimes you think, okay, I've got two candidates who are going to be amazing, and they're going to be my big clients, and then they just don't turn out to be as amazing, right? Some of them just one of the people who I wanted to work for this year, I was so excited about, is a great guy, but too happy with his life to be a successful politician. And
That's a crazy way to put it.
yeah, I mean, running for office is that the same advice my pastor gives me is the same advice I give to people running for office. You got to want it so bad.
Yeah.
You've got to,
Sacrifice.
you've
Yeah.
got,
Just,
you've got to, you have to know it'll be the best and the worst thing you've ever done in your life. And that some days you will think, I am the biggest idiot in the world for ever putting my name up for office. And you've got to want it at the core of your being. You got to know that God wants you to run for office, that this is a mission beyond yourself, because it's nasty, it's negative, it's expensive, and people are irrationally hateful. And and so um, and so what's funny about this guy whom I'm referencing is he was just too happy. I've recognized, he was independently wealthy. So instead of campaigning, he'd go and do his vacation in Brazil like he did every year. And I'd have to say, man, you're running for statewide office. You
yeah.
can't take a vacation. You've got to meet so many people in such a short time frame. So it's very hard to predict.
Yeah.
So it's hard to know who's going to be your big client, who isn't. That being said, I think it was a good decision to sort of shrink down the number of clients we've had. And so that's a little bit of the story about how we got here, and ended up where we are today.
Well, it's so fun though. Now, you said there's going to be a little bit of a pivot coming up. What's next?
Yeah. So the big thing is wanting to help more businesses, and we really wanted to help a lot of faith aligned business. I'm a person of faith as well. And I just think I really want to help people like my wife and I. We started our business together. We've been in it together for almost 20 years now. And, we're always trying to think of ways, or, well, maybe I should put it this way. This is more accurate. These days, I've tried to be more cognizant of how I can run my business in a way that gives glory to God and not to myself.
Yeah.
And that was not the way I thought in most of my business time, right? And so I want to help other people do that. So the big pivot was I've learned I'm not going to take all the political marketing skills I got and go apply them to businesses. And the reason I learned that didn't make a lot of sense is because it was too similar to what everybody else is doing in the market. It might be interesting to say, hey, I worked for Ted Cruz, now I can market your business. But there's a lot of marketers out there, and they're around every corner, and they're all the best of the best of the best, right? And they all have secret sauce.
Yep.
And so even though I thought it was pretty unique, our background and a good reason to hire us, the truth of the matter was what we really were world class at was helping people establish key relationships and connections. And so that's the pivot we've made. I've taken all the stuff we learned growing our political marketing agency and all this sort of super connector stuff I developed over the years and said, how can I help businesses today do the same thing I did?
Yeah.
As opposed to being their marketer, right? They don't need, if I'm being honest with myself, there are a lot of people they could hire to run their Facebook ads. And a lot of them would be better at it than I was. But very few people were as good as my wife and I have been at helping people establish connections and relationships and
Hmm.
tapping into our network on behalf of others. And so that's what we've been building. And so we still do the political stuff. So we're not gone from that. For those of you who might be running for office and listening to this, you can still call me.
Nice.
But we're really excited about helping business owners through our network. We call it the Liberty Builders Network.
I love that.
Yes.
That's incredible. And I understand only now as just recently becoming a connector myself. I never considered myself to be in that spot when I was doing that, but I wasn't doing it super intentionally. And then
Yeah.
when someone teaches you the framework, you're like, wait a minute, there's steps. I can follow this like a process, and then I can be very intentional with everything I say, but also everybody that I interact with. And then you develop that trust, and then you can just say, do you trust me? Right? Can I send you somebody if I meet them? And I just, some people are like, oh, I always request permission. I'm like, I think I have been given a gift of being introduced to somebody that I think of you next. And I just give myself the permission to say, like, hey, I'm not going to send you someone crappy, right? Like, I want
Yeah.
to send you somebody really good, which has given me the now, I don't know what you would call it, just like people are cool if I just blindly introduce them to someone. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
Tiff says it. I'm gonna trust her because she hasn't said me wrong yet. I mean, it may have been just my new best friend. Maybe we're not gonna do business together, but at least like I figured out there was some sort of spark that led me to think of both of you at the same time that I will push
Yeah.
you. But quite honestly, I'm like a few thousand people deep now. I'm like, when does your brain break for this? I wish AI could help dialogue my
Yes.
catalog better my brain for this. So I'm still waiting for that perfect super connector tool. Let me know when you get there. Cause
Yeah. Well, I that's got to be around there. And my experiences is similar. I I did that for 20 years. I developed
wow.
relationships, I made connections, and never would have called myself anything. In fact, when I hired salespeople and they said, "What's my job description?" I would say, "Your job description is to make friends, make a lot of friends, hand out a lot of introductions to other people, and you will get the introductions you need for your business or
Mhm.
for people to hire us." And nobody quite got it the same way I did. Although I also realize it takes time, right? You don't develop a network like that overnight. Um, but I just did it. My sales coach used to say, "Kurt, you're the worst salesperson I know, but you put out such good sunshine in the world, you get clients, right?" And there was a lot of truth to that. I was never the guy who, if I knew a candidate for office was going to bring in 6 firms and have us all do presentations and PowerPoints and all that, I never signed any of those clients. I always signed the ones who valued the relationship first, who sat across the table with me. We could develop trust. I could, I did, I might have a presentation, but I'm going to take out a piece of paper and we're going to sketch out how this is going to work together. And it was because the people who, what I was good at was sort of the relationship side. So I didn't realize there was even such a thing called a super connector
Yeah.
until relatively recently. And what's funny about it is I'd often prayed about my life's purpose. Like, God, what is it
Mhm.
that you really want me to do? Some people have these mission statements. They're so
Yeah.
clear, I'd go to a Tony Robbins thing and he'd be like, write down your mission statement. And I'd be like, I'm not that clear.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I understood this super connector thing that it started to be clear. Like, this is something I have a gift for
Hmm.
that other people don't necessarily think the same way I do, or have the same gift, or don't think of things the way I do. And that's something that God has given me that I need to steward
Yeah.
to in a good way. And I started seeing little magical things happening that I couldn't take credit for. I'd put two people together, sometimes by accident,
Yeah.
and then deals would get done. And I'm thinking, this is also further evidence that I'm sort of flowing in the stream as opposed to against it, right? When just
Yeah.
like things I can't take credit for, where I know that this is something God wants me to do.
Hmm.
And so the tension isn't there as much, and so I've loved it. And people who join our group, um, I've seen magic things happen, and I know I can't take credit for it because we sometimes do in-person events. You mentioned that you do some, and I've had ones where I've had people in the room do deals together. Neither one of them were invited by me, and neither one they were invited by somebody else. And I thought I could not have orchestrated this,
Hmm.
but I've started to articulate it as a concept of shared stewardship.
Hmm.
it's the idea that, you, Tiffany, have gifts
Yeah.
and resources that you were given and that you have a responsibility to steward. So it might be a talent you have, might be some assets you have, maybe you have some money, maybe you have some IP, maybe you're a brilliant technologist. These are gifts that you've been given. You have a responsibility to steward those gifts. There somebody else out there who have gifts that fill a gap for you, and where you have, but you also have like a mutual shared passion around something, right? And that's I think something divine. There's a shared stewardship. There's something that God designed to be done
Yeah.
that takes the two of you, or maybe the four of you, right? And so I've started to think about. I'm stealing this concept, by the way, from a guy I met out of Tennessee, whose name totally escapes me right now, but I try
That's
to give
okay.
him credit. Um, and and that's what I think is happening is these two guys who are at this event, Sam and Jeff, right? It just happened to be they had shared stewardship. Sam has some amazing technology. Jeff has the assets to help him grow financially. And it just, they were there and they made that connection. And so in some respects, what I think is we're really doing, we're not networking, we're not making connection, we're helping people identify that shared stewardship, which I think also reflects a little bit in how what you're doing. You're not asking for permission to interview. I think or to make introductions all the time. I think some people are too judgmental. I have a few
Yeah.
people in my life who are like, you know, I've sent them introductions and they've sent me back something like, I don't want to take more meetings. And I sort of get it. Some people want to be super disciplined with their
Mhm.
time. I'm all for that. But I think they fail to realize that sometimes this identification of shared stewardship comes from weird places,
Huh.
or because maybe you and I don't have a perfect sync on that, but you'll introduce me who's somebody who does. And so I try also not to be too judgy about it. Not that I want to be introduced to every random person
Right. Yeah.
but at the same time, one of my people I help is an IndyCar race car driver, and he's developed a partnership I'm hoping will close this year with a giant company. And that came about because I met a guy named Mike at a Tony Robbins event who introduced me to a guy named Charles, who introduced me to a guy named Chris, who introduced me to Elvin, who introduced me to Colby, who represents this company that's in
Yeah.
conversations with my IndyCar driver.
I love that.
And none of these people, like, what's funny about my buddy Chris, who I really like, he lives down in Dallas, and he and I talk a lot about faith because I'm a pretty outspoken Christian and he is an atheist.
Oh, no way.
And so we're like very different on
Yeah.
faith. But he's introduced me to more right-wing Christian people than I know because he
I
lives
love
in
that.
Dallas, right? That's
Yeah.
only
Yeah.
people who live there. And he introduced me to Elvin, who introduced me to Colby, who are both really faith centric. And so if I would have said, if I would have said like most people, like Chris and I we're not
Mm-mm.
simpatico, I would have missed out on Elvin, who's become a great referral partner for me. And I would have missed out
Wow.
on Colby. So I think
Right.
people are a little too judgy at some
I
point.
think everybody, I treat everybody as if like, wow, how can I pour into you? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
you just need to hear me today. Because mine of my gifts is encouragement, but also I'm like, well, maybe you need to know someone I know, right? That's how I can pour into you. Or it could be maybe you need something I know, or need something like I have a fund, right? Like, but or maybe so I'm always like, let's figure out why we were put together, because I
Yeah.
believe every room I walk into is with divine intention, and I'm there to diagnose why, because it's like an abundance mindset of not like, God dang, I have to do this. Even if I have a canceled appointment, I'm like, that was supposed to happen today. When can we meet again? I hope you're
Yeah.
okay. It's like giving everybody the grace and the benefit of the doubt that like we're supposed to meet. And I have someone just in the last 2 months, she canceled like 3 or 4 times. And I was like, I know I need to meet you real bad. Do you think we
Mm-hmm.
can meet again? And she was like, I thought you were just gonna be like, screw this lady, it doesn't want to meet with me. I'm like, no, when that happens that much, I think there's something keeping us between each other. And sure enough, we met last week and she's like my new best friend. I'm like, I knew I
Yeah.
needed to meet you, right? So
Yes.
I just lean into like things happen. I'm a mom, so I get it, right? Like, oh, your kids, right? Go pick up your kid from the school. I have to get
Right.
all my appointments for the afternoon. And so it's really just leaning into the bigger side of like, how can I figure out why this is going to be amazing today? And it's just
Yeah.
leaning into that with everybody you meet and looking for their rights instead of their wrongs, like so many people do. And don't get me wrong, I had moments in my 20s where I was like, there was a t-shirt I saw someone wearing at the baggage claim one day, and it said, "I'm secretly judging you." And I thought, yeah, I think we're all secretly judging everybody else now. And instead, my little sister, she goes, "You know what I do? Everybody that I meet, I look for something that I could compliment them on. So I'm
Yeah.
sourcing my brain and telling it to find something amazing in them so that I have a genuine." And she's so darn like, I thought it was bubbly. She's so bubbly, and her barista, she goes up, "Oh my gosh, I love your earrings," but she says it out of sincereness, and I'm like, that is so much better than silently judging you versus like, I'm
Yeah.
silently trying to find a way to compliment you to make your day better because I was supposed to meet you today, right? Like,
Yeah. It's one of the toughest things I think in life because many of us, myself included, we struggle with the basics of am I good enough?
yeah, yeah.
Am I truly loved?
Ooh.
And one of the best ways, I think, most cynical ways, but one of the easiest ways to feel better about ourselves is to be judgy of somebody else. So I don't feel great about myself today, but at least I'm not that, whatever that your thing is. And it's different for everybody, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm in politics, right? So for some, well, at least I'm not this horrible Democrat, or at least I'm not this crazy fascist Republican, whatever that thing is. And we feel better. We feel more certainty. We feel more significance when we can sort of put people down.
Hmm.
And I think in some respects, we don't even realize we're doing it. Um, and so it's a tough habit to get over. And one of the things that we learn, I think, poorly in church sometimes, is that there's really only one solution to it, which is it's getting closer to the gospel, and it's like falling in love more with Jesus every day. Like we don't solve our identity problems by reading more books and chanting more chants, or doing more affirmations. We find our identity in Christ, which is a hard thing to do. I think it's the world has so many other things it's telling us.
Yeah.
Um, Tim Keller calls it preaching to your own heart. So you read scriptures, you bring in the truth, and you preach to your own heart to create that heart change. And that's what your sister, right?
Yeah.
There's some benefit to that because in her heart she's looking for the best, right?
Mhm.
And that takes a special like surgery almost inside to get to that spot when it's so much easier just to say, you know what would make me feel better is to say that person's hair is green and I don't understand what's wrong with them,
Right.
and at least I don't do that. Or how would you ever show up to the airport looking like sweatpants and slippers? Like that is so, and I have opinions about all those things, right?
Yeah, I know,
uh,
right? Political, you got to be like pretty everywhere.
yeah,
So,
well, and politics brings it all out the
oh yeah,
most, right? I mean, what we see so much in this country right now is everybody trying to feel better about themselves by digging on everybody else,
yeah, yeah.
and
Hmm.
it's so important for us to prove other people wrong. Um, that doesn't come from a place where there's no truth, right?
Hmm.
Um, but we're just so in. I think we're just so messed up. We've got more psychiatry than ever before, but we're screwed up more than ever before.
Wow, yeah.
And that's just an easy way to feel better. I'm going to dog on somebody else, and we all do it. I'm not. I'm just more.
No,
I'm aware I'm doing
you
it.
just have to train your brain to stop. You could let it run a trail, or you could say, "Oh, wait, I caught that thought, and now I'm going to change it," which
Yeah.
I've had to train myself to do. Can I ask you this? Oh my gosh, you and I just know we could always talk forever. This is a big switch, and it sounds like your heart has led you here, and the Liberty Group sounds like it's going to be amazing. It's still a lot of work, like everything you're putting in. Why do you keep showing up?
Because I think all the big things I've always wanted to do are, I see them happening right? In people who join and make those kind of connections, right? Um, the Some of the absolute amazing connections that have happened that I think are absolutely world changing. We've got a couple of people in our groups, people that we're working with um, who are amazing charities. For example, like a group called Kids Alive International. They work with children who've gone through abuse, um, and they're absolutely transformative in their lives.
Wow.
And then we have another person in our group, and most of our group are not nonprofits, but these two just really speak to my heart. There's another one called the PTSD Foundation of America that's based in Houston, and they have a camp for people dealing with PTSD. They
Oh,
don't
wow.
take insurance. They don't do any. It's all free, and they
Wow.
do that because people suffering from PTSD, they get 30-day programs, 60-day programs, or they're told to get on drugs or whatever. And then by the time that they start getting better, they're kicked out of the program because the insurance doesn't pay for it anymore, or because it's
Yeah.
only a 60 or 90-day thing. They keep people there for 6 months to a year, sometimes even longer.
Wow.
And it's absolutely transformative. And I'm seeing the connections that have happened in our group to get these people in front of folks who can support the organization.
Wow. Yeah.
um, I have, and that's what's really keeping me doing it, because it's always what I've wanted. I've wanted to see real transformation happen in our world. And I thought, well, the only way to do it, or the best way to do it, was I'm going to elect all these politicians, right? Once we get the right people elected, boom. And I'm not really necessarily seeing that. I don't want to denigrate it because,
Yeah.
um, you know, there's I've had a ton of impact, right, in what we've done. Um, but I see it in these organizations, like in individuals' lives. I met two of the staff members I met at the PTSD Foundation of America are people who've been through their program and now work for it.
Wow. That's
And so I
cool.
got to hear their stories, and both of them, it's just like, oh, I'm trying to be a man because they're all soldiers, right? So I'm kind of, and I'm trying not to cry when they're telling their stories. Um, and so that's what's got me excited, is what seems to be happening. I also really enjoy, we've been doing helping a lot of these out by putting on events, and I enjoy creating experiences for people. And we've been able to merge together what we do for our IndyCar driver. His name is Stingray Robb, by the way. It's his real name, Stingray.
Wow. That's fun.
And so they come to these awesome race experiences, and that's how I facilitate a lot of these meetings, right?
Yeah.
Is, hey, I'll come to a race and you're going to meet neat people. You're going to enjoy a race. You're going to meet Stingray, who needs your support. You're going to meet these other organizations, and then just stuff happens.
Wow. That's so fun. I love this. Oh, I love your story so much. Tell me, at this point, people are thinking, I want to come. But I want to follow you. I want to know more. What's your favorite way for people to come find you?
So, well, you can go to our website, libertyspenders.com, although it needs some serious updating. But if you go there, you can book a meeting on that website. You can also just email me at Kurt at libertyspenders.com as well, and then that'll get to me. It gets to our shared inbox, and we can arrange to meet. But I'm also on LinkedIn. Do not hit me up on Instagram. I am not one of those people who I had a couple people send me a message on Instagram, and I find it like two months later,
Me
and I
too. I'm like, I'm so
awful.
sorry.
But LinkedIn I see, and because I'm on that a lot, and emails I'll see, and if you submit a request to meet, but I'd love for people to meet us and come to one of our events, or even come to our Liberty Builders Network. We do virtual sort of connection meetings twice a month, and so anybody can come and just check one of those out.
Nice. I love that. Oh my gosh, time's flying so much. I only have two more questions. The next one is like, what's on the horizon for you?
Well, I really want to expand what we're doing with these shared experiences, because I think that that's been powerful for leading to the shared stewardship concept I was talking about. Um, you know, really good relationships, deals, other things don't happen overnight. But when you create some really cool experiences for people, I see what I've been calling relationship compression, particularly when we put together experiences around race weekends, because it's a 2 or 3 day event, depending on how long you come. And so magic can happen quicker because it's not just a 30-minute Zoom call that sparks the initial relationship. It's a 16-hour, you know, thing over the course of 2 or 3 days. And so I really want to expand what we're doing with sports and experiences, because that seems to be a good facilitator of these relationships. And I love doing them around racing. I think there's something specific about it, because it's not like a basketball game where it's 2 hours and it's over.
Right.
Um, but but racing doesn't go 365 7 days a year. So we're working on some relationships in football that we could take advantage of, some other places to develop. So I've developed these kind of shared experiences. I'm hoping to expand upon how many of those we're doing every year. So that's where I expect to go next.
I love that so much. All right. And then this is my last question. What are your like little golden nuggets of wisdom that we want to end the show with today?
Hmm. You know, I shared my concept of shared stewardship, and part of the reason I like it is because, particularly if you're a business owner trying to build something and you need equity investors or something like that, I think there's this inherent tension where you're thinking, I need to raise a couple $1,000,000 for my business, and I don't want to see everybody like they've got dollar signs over their heads. I don't want to treat family office people like they're, like I'm a shark and you know, they're the fish in the ocean. And it creates this tension if you're not a sociopath. And and when you see it, less of I need to find investors who will give me money, and more like I just need to locate somebody who has common or shared stewardship with me. It changes the way you think about the relationships that you're building, and it takes some
Yes.
of that tension away.
Hmm.
So you're looking for something more significant than just, okay, this person has $1,000,000 and I need 500,000. How can I get them to give me money?
Yeah.
More than how can I identify where they have a mission that aligns with mine, or they need something that I have where we're a good hand and glove kind of fit. And this is something new-ish, but it's like I said, it seems to be happening. And so I think that's a nugget of wisdom that's recent for me. The other one is just, um, I've spent some time in the last few years rethinking about how I judge my purpose in business. Um, and there's an when you're growing for the very first time, in particular, I think you believe, when I achieve X in my business, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
So when I make $1,000,000 for the first time, my problems will go away and I will be happy. Or um, and that's it's easy to believe even when other people tell you it's not true. And even after you get there, to some extent, I think it's easy to say, I have money in the bank. I am more successful than these other people, and therefore I feel better about myself as a human being. And that's ultimately empty.
Hmm.
And I've always been, always, just meaning from a very young age, a person of faith. So I always understood intellectually that there was more to life than just success or
Yeah.
having a certain amount of money. But I've more intently realized in the last few years that um, there's really just one um, person we're performing for, and that's our creator. And when we lose sight of that, we make dumb decisions.
Yes.
Um, and um, and we're ultimately unhappy. I always sort of looked at the first of the 10 commandments, like thou shalt not have any other gods before me, and the second, thou shalt not make graven images. Like, okay, that's something that was important for those people a few thousand years ago, because they actually made statues and worshiped things.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't do that. I don't make a graven image. But it wasn't until more recently that I appreciated that we make metaphorical graven images all the time.
Right.
We put up on pedestal financial success or success in audience size or um, just success in general, right? And those end up being very cruel masters.
Hmm.
One
Man,
day they come for their pound of flesh, right?
how about that?
And so we learn in Scripture that we should um, worship Christ. And the distinction there is these other idols come for their pound of flesh one day. And it might be 10 years from now, it might be 10 months from now, it might be 10 days from now, but they one day come and it's never pleasant. But we learn um, we learn from in our faith that instead of coming for his pound of flesh, Jesus gave his pound of flesh, right? And so, unlike the other cruel masters, he's a good master, right? And so, I think that's the other thing. And it may take a little bit of trials and tribulations before people like me. That's what I needed to
Mm.
kind of wake up to that reality more clearly. But I can save you a lot of drama if you realize that before the trials and tribulation come.
Right.
Um, so that would be my other nugget.
I love that. Thank you so much for your time. I loved hearing your story and hearing all your wisdom that you've taken so many years to hard and easy get, right? Um, and then I'm so grateful for everybody who's listening. Thank you so much. Do me a favor, go and follow Kurt on LinkedIn and go check out his website because you might be a great fit for hanging out with his network and be a gem to be able to be in addition to that to share what kind of resources that you want to share. And in the meantime, everybody go have a wonderful day, and I will see you on the next episode. Thanks again, Kurt. Bye.
You.